Hello, hello. It's another Monday. So we're here to do another book talk. I am AnnaLee Dragon, the director of the Kinderhook Memorial Library. And this week I'm very excited because we have another unboxing. It took forever, but my books finally got here. I should say your books finally got here since they are for you, but I picked them, so I'm very excited. And actually I have kind of a theme going on this week because it's like the return of some favorite authors. So some people who you've seen and loved in previous years with books they've come out with are back with new books. So I thought we'll talk a little about the new books and also just remind you of what the other books were, or, tip you off in case you haven't read those yet, because there's some excellent, excellent stories. So don't mind my look down. Just checking my notes. The first book I want to talk about, everybody has been very excited about. It's Elena Ferrante, The Lying Life of Adults. Now, for those of you who don't know, Elena Ferrante wrote a trilogy, the Neapolitan trilogy, it's called. And the first book was My Brilliant Friend. And not only were the books just a gigantic success, but they made an HBO series out of that trilogy. And so she is back with a new book. And she writes female friendship really wonderfully. She's an Italian author. And I think everybody is just like super excited to see what she's been up to, because that trilogy has gone over so big. And it was interesting to me because that trilogy was kind of a slow burn. It wasn't like a bestseller right out the gate, but it built, people recommended it to other people, and it became more and more popular, and I couldn't keep it on the shelf for a while. And then the HBO series happened, which of course always launches them to a new audience and kind of to new heights. So The Lying Life of Adults by Elena Ferrante, I have a couple copies. And if you don't know this, with new books that are very popular and there can be long wait lists, you shouldn't let that deter you, because whenever I buy a copy of the book for our library, you're only waiting behind the Kinderhook patrons to get, you have first dibs on our copies. So it goes, even if there's 300 people waiting, if we own a copy or two, you're gonna get it pretty quickly. There's usually not all that many Kinderhook patrons waiting. So once we filled all of our holds, wow, then it moves on to the rest of the system and fills other people's. But just so you know, don't let the long holds list intimidate you. Definitely sign up if there's something you're interested in. So the next book I am super excited about because I love this author. I've talked about her before on my book talk, so if you followed these, you've heard me mention her name before. Ruth Ware. So she wrote In a Dark, Dark Wood was her debut book, which is the one I spoke about, I think, at least once, and I loved that book. They are making it into a movie, supposedly. Looks awesome. But she also wrote The Turn of the Key and The Death of Mrs. Westaway are two of her more recent books. And I love the direction she's headed in. They weren't super modern in the type of mystery they were. They were thrillers and page-turners, but a la Agatha Christie. And I thought that for a while, and then I got the new book, One by One, by Ruth Ware. And actually one of the comments on here on the back is that she is the Agatha Christie of our generation. So I wasn't alone in thinking that. She has a really kind of just classic way of writing, and her mysteries are just, they've gotten really good. So this One by One is about a ski resort in the French Alps and a group of people that get stuck there who are coworkers, and they each have something to hide. So it kind of reminds me of like a game of Clue. Like, I'm sure there's gonna be a crime or a death and you'll be wondering who did it, because everybody has their own reasons for wanting revenge or to keep something quiet. So it's called One by One. I'm super excited to read this one. So if anybody else reads it, I wanna chit chat about it. So let me know so we can talk, because I think she is just, fantastic. And if you like Agatha Christie and you're looking for a more modern version, I think Ruth Ware is it. Okay, so the next book has a little library twist. Fiona Davis is the author. It's called The Lions of Fifth Avenue, which for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure is not many of you, but the lions, this is referring to the Lions of New York Public Library, who are named Patience and Fortitude. If you ever have a trivia question about that and you don't know what they are, it's Patience and Fortitude. And this book, she wrote a few others. She does love New York City, so she's written about New York City before. One of her first book, I think, which was hugely popular, was called The Dollhouse, and it was about the Barbizon Hotel in the 1950s in New York City. This book is about New York Public Library and takes place in 1913, I think, so earlier. And it's about a theft in New York Public Library. So she has a love affair with New York City, which many of us do, especially with our proximity to it. We're so close. So, and I have a love affair with New York Public Library. So I'm very excited. This was also a Good Morning America book club pick. So if you are following their book club, this is the next book, but she's just a fantastic author and I'm really excited to read this one. The next is not a full book. It is a book, but it's a collection of stories as opposed to a novel. It is by Emma Cline. It is called Daddy. So for those of you who did read her before, she wrote this book called The Girls, which was hugely critically acclaimed. It was a few years ago. Everybody just went bananas over it. This one is a story collection about, as they put it, exploring the dark corners of the human experience. So I feel like we're all dark corners lately, aren't we? I don't know if I'm in the place to read a bunch of dark things right now, but if you are, this collection is getting great reviews. And if you liked her other book, The Girls, you might really be excited for this one. So check out Daddy by Emma Cline. Okay, next book. This one is another one I'm very excited for. So a year or two ago, Ya Jassi came out with a book. She is an American Ghanaian author, and she came out with this book called Homegoing that was about the slave trade and slavery and the people who suffered the most during that. And it was just lyrical and beautiful, and she has a way with words and emotions and obviously very tough subject matter, but really just beautifully told and completely engaging, I guess is what I would say. So she has a new book out, and I know one of our book clubs just read Homegoing. So this might be next on the list for some people. It's called Transcendent Kingdom. It is a Read with Jenna book club pick. But the thing that gets me is this is a more modern story as opposed to Homegoing, which was very generational about a long time ago. This one is about race in America, which could it be more timely? And it's about a Ghanaian American family living in the modern South. And so they call it an intimate portrait of a young woman reckoning spiritually and intellectually with the legacy of unmanageable loss. I have a feeling this is going to be an exceedingly moving book, always beautifully written. So if you are somebody who loves I'll read pretty much any book if it's fun or exciting, or it doesn't have to be beautifully written for me to read it and enjoy it. But I know there are some readers who that's what brings them in, is it's not so much the subject matter as it is the language that's used, the word choice, the picture that's painted, and how literary and lyrical it can be. If that's true, I highly recommend Ya Jassi. She is just a wonderful writer, and it's poetic. It's verse, but it's poetic. So I'm excited for this one. And again, I have a couple copies of this, and I think I even got this one in large print. So if you want the large print copy, we have that too. Okay, the next is another one that was a huge fan favorite, and actually I read it and adored it too, and I think I may have talked about it in a book club, in a book talk here. But the author's name is Frederick Bachman. He wrote A Man Called Uwe, and this one is called Anxious People, which I think is everybody in America currently, possibly the world. Frederick Bachman has a way of writing about these quirky, oddball kind of characters, but really making them relatable and making you cheer for them. They become like the everyman, and we are all rooting for his characters. So I am excited to check this one out. To give you an little introduction to it, it says it's a poignant, charming novel about a crime that never took place, a would-be bank robber who disappears into thin air, and 8 extremely anxious strangers who find they have more in common than they ever imagined. I think that's what it is about his characters, is they, in the onset, seem like real kind of odd ducks, like people that you might not relate to, but then the more you read, the more relatable they become, and as I said, you get to a point where you're cheering for them. A Man Called Uwe was... I couldn't have loved it more, and there were some people in my life who his character reminded me distinctly of, in a very charming and endearing kind of way. So I am excited to read his take on a bunch of new people, because I loved that book so much, which was also made into a movie, not an American movie, but we have it here, and it was fantastic. So Frederick Bachman, Anxious People. And then lastly, I'm going to give you a little nonfiction. So a few years ago, Helen McDonald came out with a book called H is for Hawk that was about her using the sport of hawk hunting as a way of overcoming some tragedy in her life. So she is back with it's a bird themed title again. It's called Vesper Flights by Helen McDonald. I'm sorry, the glare is, you can't really see it that well. I'm going to put the covers at the end again, so you'll be able to see them all. This is not a novel, but a collection of both her best love pieces and some new things, new essays on topics ranging, it says, from nostalgia from the countryside of her youth to a true account of a refugee's flight to the UK. So the thing that really grabbed me when I was looking at this book is that it says it's an exemplary writing about the intersection of the animal and human worlds. And I know, living in Columbia County, we have a lot of wildlife and a lot of animals and a lot of nature lovers around here, bird watchers, gardeners. So I think anything that's kind of an intersection of those two subjects is going to be popular, right? Plus, she was so well loved and her first book was so well received. I'm hoping this is going to be a popular one. I'm looking forward to reading it myself. Vesper Flights by Helen McDonald. So my box of books had a whole bunch of other stuff in it. There's new James Patterson, there's some new nonfiction. I am going to do some other book talks, so we'll cover some of that, but definitely check our catalog if you have read BookPage or the New York Times bestseller list, or anywhere else that you've read about a great book. Check the catalog, because oftentimes it will be in there, sometimes even before the book is released, so that you can put a hold on it. And then it lets me know when we get a certain number of Kinderhook patrons waiting for something, I can look that up and see what's high demand. And then that encourages me to buy things. So I love that. I also love if you want to email me a suggestion of something you saw or read about and you're wondering if we're going to get it, send us an email at info@kinderhooklibrary.org. And I check that constantly in a fairly unhealthy way. And I will be looking for suggestions, because I love to buy things that people are asking me for. So I hope you've enjoyed our latest unboxing. I am really excited to get these books in the system. Hopefully I'm going to do it today, so they'll be all ready and waiting for you to request them. And we will be back next week with some more fun things to talk about, okay? Thank you all so much for being here and for letting me know you're enjoying these. It means a lot, and we miss you all. And we'll talk to you very soon. Bye.